Hello, and welcome to the No Felt. I'll start again. I'm really crap sometimes at these things. My tongue just goes too far ahead. Hello, and welcome to the No Format podcast with me, Michael.
And me, Charlie.
When we say no format, we mean no format. We are winging it. Right, so last week we randomly looked at my dining room table and we picked a topic based on what was on my table, and with the topics that was picking, it was obviously board games. So you've got into board games relatively recently, haven't you?
Yeah, I think since I met you, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've always played board games like your just generic ones like Monopoly and Cluedo and things like that, but I think the more sort of obscure, if that's the right word to describe it. But yeah, all probably my favourite ones now are ones that you've recommended.
Yeah.
Plus a couple of old classics that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like Risk and games like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. With you saying the obscure board games, I never know what to sort of classify them as.
No. I never knew a board. But again, so since I met you, a board game that you could play against the game. Like, to me, board games always been you play against other people, not like playing against the game kind of thing.
Well, the first one that that I'm aware of, like sort of that made the big leaps with that was a game. It was The Hobbit.
Ah, okay.
From Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien. In which you played as up to 5 of the hobbits, because they included one who in the books is barely there, called Fatty.
Okay.
He's barely there in the opening sort of sequence. But yes, so not the Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. Sorry, not. But yeah, he's barely there in the beginning, and you basically on this mission to go and destroy the ring, and you're drawing cards that tell you whether you're succeeding or failing. And I'll be honest, we got it, and I was like, "Oh, this is amazing! I've got like a historical game here, one of the first, and it's crap."
Okay.
There's so many better ones now. The most recent one I got on that is called Horrified, which you've played, haven't you?
Is that the one? I was actually talking to my dad about that. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, the Swamp Monster.
Yeah. So Horrified, Pandemic is the biggest one out there at the moment. So in which you're trying to destroy 4 viruses, which is sort of similar to real life at the moment, a bit too close to home. But Horrified, it's taken Pandemic, but just giving it a bit more theme, and you're trying to destroy Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy.
Isn't it all sort of like monsters from like the sort of
Universal movies?
That's the one, because they've sort of had a resurgence with them films, haven't they? Yeah. But no, I enjoyed playing that because I was trying to describe it to my dad the other day, and it was kind of like when you look at the board, it kind of reminds me of Cluedo, like the way the board, because you've got the rooms. Obviously, Cluedo, you're solving a murder. With this, you're trying to kill monsters, kind of thing. But the game didn't play like that, but it just similar, a very similar sort of thing.
Cluedo was invented during World War II.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
okay.
Way to pass time. Anyway, so what I thought I'd do for the format of the No Format podcast for this episode is start off with just a basic history of board games.
Okay.
And when I say I've written the history of board games, I've literally written about one board game. So when do you think the earliest sort of record of a board game was?
Only because I was looking at some facts myself earlier, but then again, I don't know if I've got this right or not. I want to say, I don't know what the specific date, but Egyptian times.
It was Egyptian period, which obviously spans thousands of years. It was 2620 BC.
Oh, okay.
So quite a while ago. It was a game called Senet that was a painting, so a depiction of this board game of people playing it, was found in the tomb of the high official Heresire.
Okay.
They thought there might be ones that predate it, but they've never sort of got the full picture. This is the first time it's properly confirmed it was that. But Senet was seen across many years, thousands of years, in all sorts of things, and the rules changed depending on different areas and things like that. Basically, the game board comprised of a grid of 30 squares arranged into rows of 10, so 3 rows of 10, and that's all they massively know about it. So gameplay is subject to discussion, but 2 historians, Timothy Kendall and R.C. Bell, made their own reconstruction of the rules based on snippets of text. So because, like I say, all these have varying sort of ideas of how you play it, they sort of took a load of them. But it's got more recent board game people are like, are you actually playing Senate or are you playing a brand new game? Because there's so many variations. Is it the actual game that you're playing now?
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So that was the first ever board game. So because I always thought chess was the first board game.
Which chess, Chinese, like
Chinese checkers.
Yeah.
It's like a variation of that. Yeah. Chinese checkers probably came before chess.
Is Chinese checkers what we would call drafts? Well, another name for it? Yeah,
I believe so. Blackgammon as well. I thought that was quite an early one.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, this Senate was the first ever one.
Oh, okay.
So I thought I'd give a little quiz in terms of timeline of games.
Okay.
So, like you say, you have done a bit of research for this yourself.
Yeah.
But put these games in order of release.
Okay.
The Game of Life.
Actually, you know what? While you say it, I'm going to make a quick note just so I don't forget. So, Game of Life.
Monopoly.
Okay.
Snakes and Ladders, or for your American listeners, because I know we're going to have loads. Shoots and Ladders.
Shoots and Ladders.
That's what it's called.
Okay. Yeah.
And Tiddlywinks.
So start with which one I thought came out first.
Yes.
I'm going to say Tiddlywinks came out first, followed by Snakes and Ladders, then Monopoly and Game of Life.
Completely wrong.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you got a single one in the right place.
Oh, really?
No. So the actual order is Game of Life first.
Okay.
And then Tiddlywinks.
See, I would have thought Tiddlywinks first because I couldn't imagine it being kind of some ancient game played.
I was quite surprised that it was this era.
Yeah.
And then Snakes and Ladders last. Although, as I'll talk about, Snakes and Ladders kind of has been around a lot longer before. Okay. So Game of Life came out in 1860.
Oh really?
Yeah. Tiddlywinks in 1888. Monopoly in 1935. And Snakes and Ladders in 1943. But there was a variation of Snakes and Ladders that came from India, and it's what the game is we have now. But in terms of it being published as Snakes and Ladders, it wasn't until 1943.
So that surprised me because I think Snakes and Ladders and Tiddlywinks are very basic.
Yeah.
So you'd think, I don't know, I would have thought they would have been kind of the oldest games, and like Game of Life, I would have thought. To be honest, I thought it was 1970s.
I've got a bit of information about each of these games actually.
Okay.
So the Game of Life was originally called the Checkered Game of Life.
Okay.
And I'm sure everyone's heard of it, but it's basically a simulation of people's life as they navigate through education, jobs, family, and then eventually retirement. The original version was slightly different to what we now know. So basically, it was because it was called the Checkered Game of Life. It was on a checkered board.
Okay.
So very much akin to Snakes and Ladders or chess and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the idea was to use a teetotum, which is basically like a spinning top with 6 sides.
Okay.
Because they didn't like to use dice because that promoted gambling.
Oh, okay.
So they used this teetotum with spinning top, which is obviously now we've got that little spinner in Game of Life. And then you use that to move across the board and land on good spaces, which are worth different amounts of points. So it might be worth 5, 10 points for landing on various spaces.
Okay.
But then there's red spaces, which are bad spaces, but I don't think anything happened on those spaces. It's just you don't want to land on it because you don't get points. Yeah. There's also a bonus 50 points for landing on the final happy old age spots. So when you get to retirement, you get the happy old age. If you finish on 100 points, you've won the Game of Life.
Oh, okay.
Simple as that.
I've never actually played the Game of Life.
You've never played the Game of Life?
No,
it's a great game.
I've never played it. Like I say, I associate Game of Life as being a very American game. Because my only knowledge of it is from watching American TV shows and like references to it from sort of things from like Family Guy and various other ones. So I've never sort of played it.
So you start off and then you have to decide whether you're going to go to university or college or just go straight into jobs.
Okay.
And obviously going to university might get it costs tuition fees.
Yeah.
So obviously that costs money. So you start off in debt that you've got to pay off.
Okay.
So it's quite strategical in terms of trying to work out, do I take this promotion further on along the line? Do I have kids? Because obviously they cost money.
Yeah.
But you live a happier life by having kids. And then having, like, sort of some of these routes are slightly shorter because if you get to the end first, you get bonus points compared to everyone else. So that's the whole point of it. And then you count up your money at the end. Yeah. And then it's the person with the most amount of money that wins the Game of Life.
Okay.
So next on the list was Tiddlywinks, which is a classic children's game where you have to get winks into a pot using a collection of squidges. What I learned about Tiddlywinks when I was researching, there's a massive lexicon. Like, the amount of unusual and bizarre words are, just bizarre.
Yeah.
So, I think it's now time to play Tiddlywink or Tiddlywank. Love it.
I love that. That is a brilliant name.
I was so pleased with myself. I was sat in the lounge in Derby and I thought of it and I was like, giggling to myself. So, I'm going to say a word and you need to tell me whether it's Tiddlywink, a real Tiddlywink word, or Tiddlywank.
Okay.
First word, squap.
Tiddlywink.
Tiddlywink.
Oh, really?
Yeah. To play a wink so it rests above another wink.
Okay.
Crud.
Tiddlywink.
Tiddlywink.
Oh.
Not doing very well so far.
No.
So that's a forceful shot whose purpose is to destroy a pile of winks.
Oh, okay.
Fartlex.
Tiddlywink.
Tiddlywank.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen.
It's what runners do when they vary their pace.
Oh, okay.
Meldrop.
Tiddlywink.
Tiddlywank.
Oh, God.
It's mucus hanging from someone's nose.
Okay.
Boondock.
Tiddlywink.
Yes, it's Tiddlywink.
Finally.
It's to free a squapped wink by sending it a long way, leaving the squapping wink free in the battle area.
Okay.
I'm lost.
Yeah. I didn't even know there were words to describe.
I know. And then finally, lunch.
Tiddlywink.
Tiddlywink.
Oh.
To pot your opponent's wink as a result of shooting one's wink on the pile.
Okay.
I guess it just bounces off and goes in. So I thought like the amount. There's even like a John Lennon memorial shot, things like that.
Oh, really?
Like the lexicon is just so bizarre, and there's British versions and American versions of the words that are just as equally as awesome.
Yeah.
But so that was my little bit about Tiddlywinks.
Okay.
Next, Monopoly. It can technically be traced back to 1903 with a woman called Lizzie Maggie. She invented a game called the Landlord's Game, which was an educational tool to illustrate the negative aspects of I'm struggling to read my own handwriting here. The negative aspects of concentrating land. I'm not sure that even makes any sense. Basically, of just getting massive monopolies.
Okay.
But she created two sets of rules with the game. So the anti-monopoly, in which you are rewarded for the wealth, and the monopolist rules, where you create monopolies and crush your opponents. And then in 1932, a man called Charles Todd invited his childhood friend Esther Jones and her husband Charles Darrow around for dinner. After the meal, Charles Todd introduced the Darrows to the Landlord's Game, and Charles Darrow, who had never played it before, absolutely loved it and asked for a written set of the rules. He then went on to distribute the game on his own and called it Monopoly. Parker Brothers caught wind of this game and brought the game's copyrights from Darrow, but then found out he didn't own the copyright because what's her name, Lizzie Maggie earlier, had patented the game herself and the rules. So they gave her $500, which is now $11,000 now, which isn't a lot for the biggest game. I was going to
say, everybody knows and plays Monopoly.
Yeah, $11,000 for the rights of Monopoly. And then it eventually went on sale in 1935. But a few years later, and you might have read about this fact, I'm not sure, it went on to save thousands of lives. Do you know why?
Is this to do with World War II?
It is to do with World War II.
Yeah, I think.
Do you know about this?
I think so. I'll let you. Yeah, if it's the same fact.
Yeah. So in 1941, the British Secret Service contacted John Waddington, who distributed the game in the UK, and they asked him to make special editions of the game for World War II prisoners of war. Yeah. And hidden in these games were silk maps. They were hidden in the actual board itself, and the reason they were silk is obviously they can be wrapped up very tight and hidden away, and they don't crease. So it's just like that. Real money hidden amongst the fake money. And then compasses and nail files, which were repurposed as the game pieces around the board. They managed to distribute them using fake charity organisations created by the Secret Service, but unfortunately none of these exist anymore because they told all the soldiers to destroy them.
So they couldn't get wind of.
So they couldn't get any wind of what they're doing. But yeah, it's incredible what they did, really.
I mean, that is a lot of like intellectual thinking, but you know what I mean, to put into sort of turning that game. But really, when you think about it, Monopoly is kind of the perfect. If you're going to sort of use a game for that kind of thing, it is a kind of a perfect game to pick from, and especially back then there probably weren't that many board games.
Well, they took advantage of the. When was the Geneva the Geneva, what's it called?
Geneva Convention.
Yeah, when was that sort of?
I think it was before World War II.
Yeah, but they basically took advantage of that system, and part of the Geneva Convention stated that they need to provide like sort of games and hobbies for the prisoners of war. So that's why these charity organisations, which were fake and completely fake, and like some of the names that they made up were absolutely ridiculous, and how they got away with it, I don't know. But yeah, they was able to be like, oh yeah, we've got Monopoly sets, which obviously you can distribute about, and they just told any soldier going out to war, be on the lookout for the Monopoly sets, they'll save your life.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting fact. have you got any more facts about Monopoly?
I've got no more facts about Monopoly, but if you've got some, bring it on.
I was going to say, how long do you think the longest game of Monopoly went?
I have
just
seen it on your
screen.
But I will also say I did read this fact earlier.
Oh, okay.
But it went on for
70 days,
which is insane.
It says 70 straight days, but I mean, I'm assuming that's sleeping.
No one stayed awake for 70
I was
days
going to
in
say
a row.
that would be a record in itself. Would surely be more important than that.
Well, because the longest, again, this is just a fact I've come out with from my brain. The longest board game marathon was completed recently. I believe it was like 5 or 6 days, but they did that without sleeping.
What, the same people, or was it like in shifts?
It was like 4 people.
Wow.
They did it for a charity.
What board game was it?
They played 75 board games in total.
Oh, so they were just going through different ones. Okay. Well, another fact I didn't put it on here actually, but apparently there was a sort of an epic game of Monopoly that was going. I don't know if was it this one or maybe another one, but the company who was it that you said that sort of created Monopoly?
It's the Parker Brothers who created it in America.
I don't know if it was not specifically them, but their company actually sent them additional money via private plane to wherever they were playing it in America. Sent them a massive thing of extra because they were just playing
because it was going on for so long.
It was going so long. So which was quite.
Wow.
It said it sent it via by plane and via like armoured car, but it's Monopoly money, like it's fake, isn't it?
Armoured car seems a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, that just seems a bit ridiculous.
So the final game I have was Snakes and Ladders that I mentioned. It was based on an Indian game called Moksha Patam. And it slowly made so that was back in the 1800s. And then in 1943 it made its way to England and then started getting sold in America as Snakes and Shoots by Milton Bradley.
Okay.
It was invented to teach children the concept of karma. So, like, in the images, it'd be good, like, snakes was considered evil and stuff.
Yeah.
So, if you're bad, then you fall down
through the snakes.
But if you're good, you get rewarded for going up.
Yeah.
And it was always sort of, like, happy people, like, climbing to the tops of the ladders and stuff like that.
Okay.
The only fun fact I have about Snakes and Ladders, though, is it's believed to be the origin of the phrase back to square one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? Because if I remember rightly, when you first played it, there was a snake that did end up at, like, the end of the tail of it was from square one.
Or, like, you get to 99 as well. I believe there was, like, one on 99, which took you almost down back to the beginning.
Yeah. I suppose that's like life, though, isn't it, in a way?
I wouldn't say it's karma, because...
No.
Just because you're winning at a board game does not mean that you deserve bad karma.
No.
But yeah, teaching you about adulthood. Shit's about to get real.
Yeah, exactly. Which I suppose you could say the game of life is it's very similar in that aspect. I did look for a couple of random facts on board games. So I found one about Trivial Pursuit. So apparently Trivial Pursuit was invented by 2 journalists. Two journalists invented Trivial Pursuit in 45 minutes after being shocked at the price of a Scrabble set.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. Trivial Pursuit is a very basic well, a lot of board games back in the era of multiple board games were very basic concepts, really. Yeah.
I mean, and Trivial Pursuit is effectively it's a quiz, really, isn't it? That's all it is, but in different categories. Have you ever? I presume you've played Trivial Pursuit.
Oh yeah, numerous times. Yeah.
My mum and dad have got one of the original ones. It's probably from the 80s, and that is one of. I mean, it's really difficult.
I imagine
very
difficult.
Yeah.
So, in my family, there's 2 experts, and I'm using quotation marks here for the listeners because obviously you're not able to see that. Yeah. 2 experts at Trivial Pursuit. So,
are you one of them?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
But I could be. So basically, it's my in-laws, so my wife's parents, Anne and Alan, I'll name drop them. They went on holiday with a group of their friends, and I think they did a series. I don't know the build up to this, so I do apologise, but I think they were doing like a series of board game nights in the evening, playing different board games, and they weren't winning them. And they knew the next game they'd be playing would be Trivial Pursuit, so they went to bed, like everyone does every night, and I don't really know where I was going with that sentence.
That could have gone somewhere else completely different.
They went to bed and they sat there reading the Trivial Pursuit questions to each other to memorise them.
Oh, really?
They memorised enough questions so they absolutely stormed it and won.
God. That's like desperation on winning. But then, in some ways, I don't think I'd be able to memorise the answers.
No, it's quite impressive.
Yeah, that side is very impressive.
I've got a board game called Illusion, and I always joke that, I've memorised the percentages. In Illusion, I think there's something like 120 cards.
Yeah.
with various different patterns on them.
Okay.
So there's 5 colours technically, red, blue, green, yellow and white.
Okay.
And they're sort of scattered across all these different cards. And what you do is the first person draws 3 cards and has to place them in order of most to least of a certain colour, which you decide at the beginning of the round. So it might be most to least green.
Yeah.
So you've got to work out the most to least green on these cards. And it's so different because the patterns are so different as they're illusions, effectively.
We've played
sure
this.
Yeah.
And I think I won the first time.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
But I always make a joke, like, I've memorised it. And I'm sure people that sometimes have questioned, like, really? Have you actually? That's impressive. Like, of course I haven't.
See, I remember, sort of trying to, surely you must have played Top Trumps.
Yes.
At some point. Like, I mean, there's obviously hundreds of different Top Trumps, but I had I think it was a planes one, like fighter jet one. And I thought I'd try and memorise the different ones, and me talking about it now actually takes me back to the UK office. And with Gareth, he's like trying to. It's one of the. I think it's the second series when the new sort of team come over. They've got some new staff, and he's trying to basically chat up one of the female members of staff. And he's sort of saying, "Oh yeah, you want to come around mine and play my top trumps?" He's like, "I've got them all memorised." But she's like, "Yeah, but how? Like, how will you know?" But says, "From what the cards I have, I will know what cards you have, and then statistically be able to beat you."
Yeah.
And I was thinking, is that actually possible? Like,
I reckon it probably is.
Could you? If Anne and Alan can do Trivial Pursuit, maybe that's a challenge for them.
Yeah.
The top trumps.
Memorise all these.
Yeah, but it's still like you're drawing the cards at random. So yeah,
I still have the as well with the their family. Alan has always won Cluedo in their family to the point that they don't like playing Cluedo with him. But one Christmas or one period when we went around their house, we all played it, and I beat Alan.
Oh, really?
We've not played Cluedo since because why would I give up my title?
Well, yeah, quit while you're at the top.
Exactly. I'm saying this, we're just about to go on a week's holiday with them, and I'm pretty sure they're bringing Cluedo with them. So my title might be lost, but I was the first person in the family to beat Alan at Cluedo, so it was quite a big moment.
Does he have a method? Because my dad has, like, when we've played with him, he has like a method of Cluedo. Do you?
Yeah.
See, do you make notes and things?
Yeah. That's the thing, like,
I don't know.
I know for a fact that Lauren's family get annoyed or get frustrated. It's like, why are you making notes during other people's turn? You don't know what cards they've played. It's like, yeah, you kind of do.
Yeah.
You're able to work out what cards everyone has played.
So my dad, he's the same. He makes notes, and we don't know. And I think my mum gets frustrated that he's doing it. And he has explained it to us once, but it was just too complicated for me.
It does work, and there is ways of being the game. But yeah, that was first invented World War II down in the Man's Land.
I don't know why, but I think I was surprised to see a lot of these board games that were invented like in the 1800s and even early 1900s. I just thought, I don't know, it seemed a lot of them I thought were like sort of 70s, 80s to even like 90s.
Well, like I say, technically, Monopoly, the original sort of inspiration for it, the early 1900s, and I wouldn't have thought it would have been that early.
No. I mean, I've got two board games I've sort of played growing up when I was at my grandparents' that were both 1971. One was called, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Campaign.
See, I have vaguely heard of Campaign, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about it.
It's very similar. I mean, I played this with my dad and I think my uncle before I ever even played Risk, but it is very similar to Risk. So you basically play as either Napoleon, so it's set in the Napoleonic Wars, so you either play as Napoleon or Wellington leading armies across Europe, and you've got, I mean, here's sort of, you have your sort of units. You have 1 general, 9 infantry units, 9 cavalry units, and then 6 sets of 4 towns. So the board's sort of split, if I remember rightly. I've not played it in so many years, but it's sort of there is 6 towns, and you're basically, or say 6 towns, I think 6 countries, and you're trying to basically across Europe trying to conquer them. But like different pieces can move, obviously different as far as different things. You have different cards, which is similar to Risk. That allow you to do different things and gain like additional units and things like that. But yeah, it was good. It was a good game. I mean, you could play up to, I think it was up to 4 players. But me and my dad sort of used to have kind of 2 armies each. And
okay.
But I think there was, or I made a note of it. So it's obviously French, the Prussians, British. I think that was it. I can't remember. But yeah, it was a good game anyway. I was talking to my dad about it the other day. If we still got it, we'll have to
give a game
night one time. But I mean, that to me, I was playing that before I even, heard of Risk, but yeah. And then the second one was a game called Crossfire, which was also 1971.
Yeah, definitely.
Not heard of that. No, so this is not it sounds like it's going to be some sort of shooting game. Well, I say shooting game, it's a board game, and it was basically, you got a large board. I'm doing the actions like people can see. So there's different versions of it, but the one that my uncle had anyway, he played sort of a long, large sort of rectangle board, and then at each end you had two sort of these. They were like red guns, and they fired little metal ball bearings out. And then you had your board with a sort of, imagine what a basketball court looks like, with a circle in the middle, kind of thing. The board was kind of, it was like very, what's the word? I think it was slightly greased as well, so it was slippery. And in the middle, you had like a silver ball bearing with a plastic ring around it. And basically what you do is you'd fire these little ball bearings at that to basically hit it into the other person's goal. Very simple, like it's not very complicated.
A greasy game with balls and rings.
Yeah, yeah. Just when you saw it like that, it definitely didn't sound. But no, I mean, I was gutted. I think my uncle got rid of it, but it was. Me and my sister used to love playing it because it was just. and then you get a bit out of control when you take the gun off and start firing ball bearings at people.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's probably not a game for now.
No, it wouldn't survive the PC culture. Well, not the PC culture.
I don't think
pandering state.
I don't think it pass even health and safety, because I mean they were
That's
like
a better word. Health and safety,
because they were like little metal ball. I mean, some of them looked like you could pellets through, like a pellet gun or something. Well, obviously they were circular, but yeah, I mean they were growing up. They were the two games that I always sort of played, and obviously your basic. Here's a little Connect 4. I found this. It's not a fact, but I just found it funny. But apparently there was an urban legend that David Bowie invented Connect 4. Bowie. But
Bowie, I believe.
Bowie, is it Bowie?
I always say Bowie.
Yeah, I always say Bowie. But apparently it wasn't. It was made up by a DJ Stuart McCoy. But I was like, is that a believable fact that David Bowie created Connect 4? Because to me, I would have thought Connect 4 would have been potentially like some sort of ancient game kind of thing.
I don't know, because there are some weird things like that. I think Mick Jagger came up with like a load of different variations of poker.
Oh, really?
No, I'm making that up.
See, it is easy to convince. Or maybe me, because I'm gullible.
Yeah, maybe it is you.
But yeah, I mean, and another fact about Connect 4. I don't know why I've got many facts on Connect 4. The player who goes first in Connect 4 can win 100% of the time. So I don't know.
Using the right strategy, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, because I've gone first loads of times and still lost. So.
The person who goes first on Snakes and Ladders has a 51.9% chance of winning.
Oh, really?
And that is a fact from my head.
Oh, okay. Have you ever played a game called Snakes and Bladders?
No.
That's like a drinking game. I'm sure it's called Snake and Bladders.
It's a drinking game.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Snakes and Ladders. But I think when you go down the snake,
take a shot.
Yeah, basically. I don't know if we played it at one of Lauren's birthday parties. It sounds.
Oh, well, maybe that would be a podcast episode. We do drinking games and we just play them.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, so like we know that the end of the podcast is when like one of us, like either of us, was passed out through drinking too much.
I don't know whether it makes the edit, but last week we talked about another podcast I like, the Always Sunny in Philadelphia podcast.
Oh yeah.
In which even though they are professional actors and everything, they're so amateur when it comes to the podcast. It's quite funny. But they did an episode recently for St. Patrick's Day. Mm-hmm. I say recently, quite a few weeks ago in terms of when this episode comes out. And they just got drunk. And it's honestly hilarious.
Oh, really?
They are so drunk by the end of it. Like the person who records the podcast and like sort of edits it.
Yeah.
And she's always in the room with them.
Yeah.
She is also drinking along to the point that she can't control what she's doing anymore.
Oh, really?
And she gets someone else to step in and she just joins them in the podcast room.
Oh, wow. See, my only thing with drinking doing a podcast is I'm just going to the toilet all the time. But I suppose you could edit that out potentially. But
take the mic with you.
Yeah, let's make it more interesting. But,
what are you doing this time, Charlie?
Number 1 or number 2. But yeah, I think I'm gonna listen to. I mean, to be honest, the only podcast I've ever listened to is obviously your previous one. But I think I'm gonna, because there's so many. Like, just as I was researching this for today, like realising there was so many podcasts just on board games kind of thing. Like there's like a podcast for a random topic that you can think of.
I think a famous YouTube channel, Sit Down, Shut Up, or Shut Up, Sit Down, one of the two. They've got a podcast, but they're very good at doing about board games. Can I say, before we wrap this up, one of my favourite sketches of all time.
Okay.
Go away if you're listening to the podcast, which would be if you're hearing me talk, because what else would be going on? And search on YouTube Auntie Donna board games, and it's so funny. They're a sketch trio, and I find them very funny. They're very obscure and random, but they are very funny. And they do a skit about board games and explaining board games and how complex they are. And it's so spot on with this day and age in board games, because if you ever played any games like Brass Birmingham or Gloomhaven, they are so concept heavy and piece heavy that is so confusing. This little sketch that they do, it just sums it all up perfectly. So I highly recommend it.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. I've never heard of either of them games that you just said either.
Gloomhaven and Brass.
Yeah,
Gloomhaven's the number 1 rated board game of all time.
Really?
Brass is number 3 rated board game of all time.
Okay.
Brass is the highest rated non-cooperative board game.
What, a brief description are they? Like,
Brass is I forgot what the name for them are, but you have to collect resources and stuff like that.
Okay.
Amongst Birmingham. So there's 2 variations. There's Brass Birmingham and there's Brass somewhere else.
So I assume it's set in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Nottingham's actually on the board.
Oh, really? I suppose East Midlands.
Yeah.
West Midlands.
But the whole idea is it's sort of collecting. I've never played it. Well, 2 of my friends love the game, and I've yet to play it.
Okay.
Gloomhaven, I really, really want to play.
Yeah.
But it's so expensive, and also you have to be committed. Unfortunately, I've got a child now, so being committed is a bit harder. Considering this pandemic's still probably going on, because a group of friends of mine started Pandemic Legacy, and we never finished Pandemic Legacy because a pandemic actually started happening.
See, me and Lauren played Pandemic in the middle of the pandemic, which was a bit weird, and then watched the film.
Contagion.
Contagion, that's the one. Yeah.
Well, Pandemic Legacy is a legacy game which you play a series of campaigns. So each month, and various things happen depending on the outcome of what you've done, and the game board changes completely as you're playing it.
Yeah.
Legacy games are brilliant. If you've never heard of them, they are fantastic. And you've got, at the end of it, you've got a game board that's unique to you.
Yeah.
Because you have moulded this board game. But yeah, so we've played it, and I'm convinced that we've got to finish the game and shout out Pandemic, and then just like Jumanji, everything will return back to normal. And we'll be back in 2018 and way before the pandemic, and it'll all be normal again.
Maybe that is the reason, because you've not finished it. I was reading about I'm sure it was a Pandemic game where you basically can only play the game once. Oh, was it Pandemic?
Pandemic Legacy.
Is it because you destroy parts of the game as you play? Oh, it must be that then. It must be that.
But I think you can play the game at the end, but it's a very destroyed version of the game.
Okay. That sounds quite interesting.
You're literally you're destroying countries and stuff like that. I won't give too much away because that's the whole point of Legacy games. My favourite one is Betrayal Legacy. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But Betrayal is a brilliant board game in which you're just roaming a house casually, going through rooms and then drawing tiles to see what that room is. And then as you're exploring, you have to roll dice when certain things come up, and you get to a point where if you roll a certain amount of dice, you lose.
Okay.
And then the actual game begins.
Yeah.
So you could have a really small house and already have lost, or you've got a massive house. At that point, one of you becomes the betrayer.
Okay.
And betrays the group. You don't know who it's going to be. And then that person has to leave the room, and they've got a campaign that tells them what, because there's 50 different campaigns that you can do.
Oh, okay.
So they have a mission that tells them what to do, and you've got a mission that tells you how to stop them.
Yeah.
And it's them against you at that point.
Okay.
And it's a really fun game. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'll have to try that. Before we finish, do you reckon you could invent a board game?
I'd love to invent a board game, but I don't think I'd be able to. I'd take too many elements from so many different board games.
If you had the time and the resources to do it, you think you could do it?
Yes.
Not with everyday life, because, that would be very difficult, but do you reckon you could?
I'd love to come up with an idea for a board game or something like that. Not necessarily a board game, but an idea to actually do.
Would you do a sort of a complicated one, or I say a complicated one, or would it be a very simple?
Like move your piece around the board and roll the dice.
Yeah. Like, what was that game we played?
Go back 2 spaces.
Yeah. What was that game? Oh, the game that we played when me and Lauren came. The one we played right at the end of the evening. Oh, I forgot what it was. We were playing it like we played against each other.
I'm not sure if I'm honest. Whenabouts?
When we last came round to
guys, talk amongst yourself.
Yeah. When we last came round to your house.
That's when we played Horrified.
And then we played a little one after. You were like, Lauren said, "Oh yeah, if Kate had bought it, yeah." And it was like, you had to use an elastic band or something.
Oh, yeah, not really. Well, it is sort of a board game, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
It was a great game.
Yeah.
Basically you have 5 pieces on your side and 5 pieces on your opponent's side, and you use an elastic band to fling these little discs through a tiny slot in the middle of the board. And the idea is to get all of your pieces onto the other side without having any pieces from your opponent on your side.
That was it.
And it's just it's a mess.
It's a very addictive.
It is very addictive.
Very addictive.
Yeah. Right, should we wrap it up there then?
Yep.
So we've come up with an idea for the no format, where we've come up with a format. Because actually, it is a bit of a format we've come up with.
Yeah.
But it was always going to happen. Maybe in a few months, years, it'll be called oh shit, we came up with a format podcast.
That could be season 2.
Yeah. But what I was thinking is next week will be just a random sort of like riffer episode in which we'll just talk random shit. Just have a little chat, you guys get to know us a bit more, and we'll possibly talk about things that have happened in our week, in our month, in our year, in our life.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Sounds good. I can chat a lot of shit, so...
You can.
Yeah.
I can vouch for that.
Just as we're saying that, I'm just looking at that picture. Obviously, the listeners won't be able to see that.
I'll tell you what, save it for next week.
I'll save it for next week.
Okay,
I'll save it for next week.
Right, I'll see you later.
See you later. Bye.